Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White and White Sense and Dress for Less, welcoming you to this week's Talking News on Friday the 4th of April 2025. We are on the eve of the charity's birthday. Tomorrow, the 5th of April, the charity will be 160 years old. We're very excited about this and we're planning lots of events this year to celebrate the 160 years we have been here trying to support and help people living with sight loss. Incidentally, tomorrow is also my birthday, although I'm not quite 160. I'm sure the news now will have reached everybody of my intention to retire later this year. We're just starting the recruitment process, and so it is likely to be the summer before a new CEO is actually recruited, and I will of course stay on hand until someone is in place. Thank you so much to everybody for the kind wishes and messages of support that I've received. It hasn't been an easy decision, but the time has come for me to put my family first before they fly the nest off to university. Lastly, a huge thank you to Debbie for all of the hard work for the fashion event last week. It was a huge success. Everybody attended. The volunteers really looked like they thoroughly enjoyed modelling the clothes, and we made lots of money. So huge thank you to Debbie, to all the volunteers involved, and to Bridget, who organised the Masonic Lodge and all of the things within it to make the event so successful. Enjoy what appears to be the new spring weather. Lisa, CEO, Sight for White, White Sense and Dress for Less.
Here is this week's charity news, the week commencing the 4th of April 2025.
Tomorrow we will be at Tesco's, Freshwater, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m, collecting money for the charity. If you are passing, please pop in and say hello.
There is no swimming now for 3 weeks due to school holidays and a bank holiday. Swimming will resume on Monday the 28th of April.
On Monday, our group will be going for their short break to Warner's Norton Grange. Let us hope the sun shines and they all have a wonderful time enjoying the many activities on offer.
There is no yoga at Millbrook House on Tuesday, but will resume on Tuesday the 15th of April. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
On Friday, we have our first walk and talk of the year, walking between Yarmouth and Freshwater. The minibus is leaving Millbrook House at 9:30 a.m, picking up from Newport bus station and then meeting to start the walk at 10:15 a.m. at Yarmouth bus station. For more details or to put your name down on the list, please call the office.
Our fundraising for Easter is going very well, and we thank all our wonderful knitters for taking part. This year, our Easter novelties will be on sale in Bryston Village stores: the Sloop, the Crown, Shorewell, Gurnard Press, Hover Travel Terminals in Ryde and Southsea, as well as Millbrook House, for a suggested donation of £2.50.
We are holding an Easter Square raffle with a host of Easter goodies up for grabs. The squares are £1 each and the draw takes place on Wednesday, April the 16th, just in time for Easter.
We are once again holding a pudding and quiz evening on Friday the 25th of April at Millbrook House. A maximum of 4 per team and a charge of £5 per person. Teams are limited, so please call the office and put your name down before they sell out.
This is an article from Isle of Wight Radio, read by Terry. Isle of Wight paramedics trained to deliver pioneering research trial. Paramedics at Isle of Wight NHS Trust are now fully trained and ready to participate in the national Crash 4 clinical trial, a major study investigating the use of tranexamic acid, TXA, for patients with mild head injuries. TXA is a widely available drug already used by paramedics and emergency departments to help prevent life-threatening bleeding in major trauma patients, as well as women who have experienced complications after childbirth. For CRASH 4, patients over 50 years old who have sustained a mild head injury and are experiencing symptoms such as brief loss of consciousness, memory loss, nausea and vomiting will be given either a low-dose TXA injection or placebo dummy drug saline solution to see if TXA reduces the risk of brain bleeding. The trial will determine if TXA can help patients recover and be discharged from the emergency department faster, and whether early administration lowers the risk of long-term complications, including dementia, mood disorders and strokes over a 12-month period. The study follows a double-blind methodology, meaning neither the patient nor the clinician knows whether the administered injection contains TXA or a placebo, ensuring unbiased results. Additionally, in cases where the patient is unable to provide consent due to their head injury, family members or friends can consent on their behalf. So far, 25 paramedics from Isle of Wight NHS Trust have been fully trained and approved to administer the trial drug, and have already recruited an impressive 9 participants in the first fortnight of operation on the island. Victoria White, Director of Isle of Wight NHS Trust Ambulance Service, said, "Our paramedics are excited to be involved in this important research trial and have completed specialist training through the National Institute for Health Research, NIHR. Research is important, and we are very pleased to be involved, and in doing so, helping to improve treatments and quality of life for our community, both now and for future generations." Charlotte Turner, Senior Research Sister, said, "It's exciting to work in an environment where the ambulance service and hospital collaborate to deliver research studies to a range of patients." Sarah Hinch, Research Facilitator, added, "As an integrated trust, we are uniquely positioned to offer this type of study. The Isle of Wight may be small, but we have a strong partnership with Portsmouth Hospital's University NHS Trust, providing extra oversight and governance to ensure high research standards. The CRASH 4 trial will run until the end of 2025, marking a significant step in advancing emergency care for head injuries. The Isle of Wight's participation demonstrates its commitment to research and innovation, ensuring that patients receive the latest advancements in treatment and improving outcomes for those at risk of brain bleeding.
This is Alison reading an article from the Island Echo entitled "White Link to Increase Multilink Vehicle Fares from the 14th of April. Whitelink is increasing the cost of its Multilink vehicle pass fares again, with the Cross Solent operator partially blaming the Labour government's national insurance contributions hike for the change. Increasing operational costs are also being attributed to the price hike, which will see the average price per crossing go up by £3.25. It will be the second price increase this year, following a hike back in January. At the moment, 10 singles for a standard car costs £365, but it's thought that the price is going up by around 10%. The new price is expected to be over £400, which will make a return crossing around £80. Multilink foot passenger passes and season tickets are not affected. However, Island Echo is told that the cost of 16 hours of parking at Ryde Pier Head is increasing by £2.50. Islanders still have time to top up their multi-link vehicle pass at the current rate, but must do so before the changes come into effect on Monday the 14th of April. Whitelink has also confirmed that up to 3 adults from the same household can now share one vehicle pass. Payment can be split across 3 interest-free instalments using PayPal, and customers renewing with 20 crossings or more will receive discount vouchers for friends and family, including those living on the mainland. A new Island Link brochure will be delivered to every home on the Isle of Wight next month, the 3rd in the past year, highlighting additional savings on ferry travel. Meanwhile, from next Monday, the 7th of April, Whitelink's discounted fares scheme will be extended to include islanders in receipt of universal credit. It is already available to those on council tax support and housing benefit. Katie Taylor, Chief Executive of Whitelink, says, "This is not a decision that has been taken lightly, as we understand the impact this will have on our customers. Our first duty as an operator is to provide lifeline services to island residents, which is why our multi-link ticket price changes have been kept below inflation for more than a decade. However, in common with businesses across the UK, we are now facing increased operational costs, driven partially by the rise in national insurance contributions, meaning we are having to make changes to ticket pricing. This will ensure we are able to continue to pay our staff fairly and provide the reliable services expected of us. Multilink still represents great value for money for island residents. I am committed to working with them to better understand what more Whitelink can do to support them and their communities."
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Family villas could be built in place of Cowes seafront eyesore. A pair of family villas will be built on Cowes seafront, replacing a rundown eyesore. The council has given consent to Hamlet Court Regeneration Limited to redevelop Hamlet Court on Cowes Esplanade after the application received 68 letters of support from members of the public. Each villa would have a lower ground floor, a ground floor and a first floor, complete with a study, utility room, bathrooms, living room and a dining room. Submitted plans include gardens looking out onto the Esplanade and Solent. Supporters of the plans argued they would greatly enhance Hamlet Court by replacing a rundown eyesore building containing flats with asbestos, damp and black mould. They also said redevelopment had been long awaited and the proposed redevelopment would fit in well with the surrounding area and buildings, providing much needed housing. Bering Road resident Richard Palmer said, "The site is in a prominent location and it is important to restore its visual appeal. The new development will bring energy-efficient homes and a fresh look to Cowes, while still respecting the character of the neighbourhood. This project is long overdue." Explaining the decision, County Hall said, "The proposed replacement development would respect the historical and cultural significance of the site. The scale, mass and design of the proposed units would not result in any unacceptable loss of amenity, over-dominance, overshadowing or loss of privacy to the neighbouring residential properties. The proposed development would result in the loss of a non-designated heritage asset within a conservation area. Although this would result in harm, this is considered to be less than substantial, and the application has demonstrated that the building could not be viably retained and converted. The Council attached 20 conditions to the approval for the purposes of national legislation and Isle of Wight planning, policy, land and building stability, privacy, protecting wildlife, adequate drainage, highway safety, local amenity and maintaining the character of the Cowes Conservation Area.
This is Alison reading an article from the Isle of Wight Radio entitled Innovative Careers for Young People Programme wins Best Educational Programme at HSJ Partnership Awards. A bold and innovative NHS apprenticeship programme designed to tackle the Isle of Wight's unique youth employment challenges was crowned Best Educational Programme in the NHS at the HSJ Partnership Awards on Thursday the 20th of March 2025. The Careers for Young People CFYP programme, developed in partnership by HTP Apprenticeship College and Hampshire and Isle of Wight Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust's Community and Mental Health Services on the Isle of Wight, offers 16 to 18-year-olds a direct route into a wide range of NHS careers. The programme, which also won a Nursing Times Workforce Team of the Year award in 2023, begins with a 6-month pre-apprenticeship, providing hands-on experience in clinical or business support services, followed by an 18-month apprenticeship with opportunities for further education and career progression. Judges of the latest award praised the programme for its innovation and nationwide scalability, recognising its broader vision for social infrastructure. By establishing new NHS career pathways in clinical and business services through apprenticeships with options for degree-level progression, it provides young people with valuable long-term career opportunities while addressing high youth unemployment. One such person, 18-year-old Caitlin Donovan, was also awarded Apprentice of the Year at the Isle of Wight Radio 2025 Best in Business Awards on Friday the 21st of March 2025. Caitlin said, "I'm incredibly grateful for the support I've received throughout my apprenticeship. The Careers for Young People programme has helped me grow in confidence and discover my passion for speech and language therapy. Starting at 17 was scary, but it gave me the chance to explore different healthcare roles. Now I'm supporting stroke patients with their speech and communication and feel like a valued member of the team. I couldn't have done it without the CFYP team and the acute speech and language team, and I hope more young people get the chance to benefit from this unique opportunity." Through the programme, young people have gained access to 44 different placement areas within the NHS, showcasing the diverse range of services they can explore to discover the career path that suits them best. A perfect 100% of leavers from the first cohort have secured employment, and so far 43 young people have been through the programme, representing 4% of the island's community mental health and learning disabilities workforce. Nicola Longson, Director of Transformation and Improvement at the Trust and founder of the CFYB programme, expressed her pride in the programme's achievements. She reflected on the journey from an initial idea that many doubted to a multi-award winning initiative, saying, "We've proven that by investing in young people and supporting their development, we can build a sustainable workforce from within. This programme is a perfect example of how we're tackling local employment challenges, while also addressing the wider needs of the NHS. I'm particularly proud that we've made this real for young people in our community, giving them opportunities they might not otherwise have had. We're also thrilled to have won the first award for our new trust." Rachel Randall, CEO of HTP Apprenticeship College, added, This incredible recognition, from the HSJ Partnership Awards to the Nursing Times win and Caitlin's Isle of Wight Radio Award, highlights the real impact of the Careers for Young People programme. It's not just about awards, it's about the opportunities we're creating for young people on the island. Through our partnership, we've seen a significant increase in full-time entrants into the health and social care apprenticeships, helping to build a skilled and passionate workforce for the future of the NHS. We're incredibly proud of what we've achieved together and excited for what's to come. Looking ahead, the programme plans to expand beyond the NHS, with health and social care apprenticeships being introduced in the 4th cohort, for which recruitment is now finalising. The next steps involve rolling the model out to the mainland. Nicola continued, "The Careers for Young People programme is the cornerstone of our strategy to grow our own future workforce. With its success on the Isle of Wight, we're now looking to roll this model out to the mainland, expanding to include both health and social care. This will help create a sustainable pipeline of young talent for entry-level posts within the NHS and social care sectors. By continually evolving the programme based on feedback from our participants, we ensure it remains relevant and impactful, supporting the needs of the workforce and putting something back into our local communities. As the Careers for Young People programme continues to grow, it remains committed to shaping the future of the NHS health and social care by providing valuable career opportunities for young people and building a sustainable workforce for years to come."
This is an article from the Island Echo, read by Terry. Islanders urged to take action as 2024 declared one of the worst years for butterflies. Butterfly lovers across the Isle of Wight are being urged to take action following the release of shocking new data confirming 2024 as one of the worst years on record for UK butterflies, with the much-loved small tortoiseshell having its worst year ever. Figures from the UK Butterfly Monitoring Scheme, that's UKBMS, show that more than half of butterfly species across the UK are now in long-term decline, the first time this has ever been recorded. A staggering 51 out of 59 species saw numbers drop last year compared to 2023. The news has sparked concern among conservationists and nature groups locally and nationally. On the island, where butterflies like the small tortoiseshell and gatekeeper are familiar sights in gardens, parks and countryside, the picture reflects the national trend of rapid decline. One of the most worrying declines is that of the small tortoiseshell, a common garden butterfly, whose numbers have plummeted by 86% since the late 1970s. Other species, such as the Chalk Hill blue, which can be found on chalk grasslands like those at Compton and Arraton Down, also had their worst year on record. Experts say a wet spring and a relatively cool summer in 2024 contributed to the poor showing, but long-term issues like habitat loss, pesticide use and climate change are leaving butterfly populations increasingly vulnerable. Dr. Richard Fox from Butterfly Conservation said, "I am devastated by the decline of our beloved British butterflies. We have destroyed wildlife habitats, polluted the environment, and used pesticides on an industrial scale. These already depleted butterfly populations are highly vulnerable and can't bounce back like they once did." Now, islanders are being encouraged to play their part in reversing the trend, starting with their own gardens. Butterfly Conservation is calling on local residents and the Isle of Wight Council to let grass grow wild between April and September as a simple yet powerful way to support butterfly habitats. Letting grass grow allows wild flowers and native plants to flourish, providing vital nectar for adult butterflies and food for caterpillars. Research has shown this can significantly increase both the number and variety of butterflies spotted in green spaces. Steve Wilkinson of the Joint Nature Conservation Committee added, "These monitoring results aren't just about butterflies, they reflect the health of our wider environment. By understanding what's happening to these species, we can take meaningful action before it's too late." The data was gathered by thousands of volunteers across more than 3,000 sites, including contributions from the Isle of Wight. The UK BMS continues to rely on citizen scientists to track butterfly trends, providing essential evidence for conservation action.
This is Alison reading an article from the Island Echo entitled "County Hall Rejects Plans for Freshwater Housing After Receiving 130 Objections." Controversial plans for 3 new houses on the edge of the West Wight village of Freshwater have been rejected by the Isle of Wight Council following 130 objections. County Hall said GL Developments Isle of Wight Limited's application to build 3 self-built homes, a means of access, open space, an orchard and ancillary infrastructure off Queen's Road in Freshwater would have a demonstrable and harmful impact. Opponents of the proposal cited the area's unspoilt rural and historic character, environmental degradation, the cost of the homes, noise and light pollution, and negative consequences for tourism. In a submission lodged earlier this year, Totland and Colwell representative Councillor Chris Jarman said it would impact Freshwater's village pound, which is a Grade 2 listed building dating from the late 18th or early 19th century, according to Historic England. The circular stone rubble structure used to house stray farm animals. Councillor Jarman said, "This is a travesty of an application, and its rejection is essential if the value of the pound and its magnificent situation is to be preserved. It has a dramatically negative impact on the visual aspect from every angle, including from Tennyson Down and also from Queen's Road, that was so praised by the inspector during a recent nearby planning appeal." The council's decision report said, "The proposed development would fail to preserve or enhance the character and appearance of the Pound Green Conservation Area and would cause harm to the nearby listed buildings by introducing undesirable and out-of-keeping built form, which would result in the urbanisation of a historically important undeveloped site. Insufficient information has been provided to demonstrate that the development would not have an adverse impact on bats, other protected species, and ecological features of interest both within and adjacent to the site. The proposal would fail to provide a financial contribution towards affordable housing on the island." The developer's design and access statement said, "Self and custom-built housing plays a crucial role as part of a wider package of measures in securing greater diversity in the housing market, increasing overall supply, and helping to deliver the homes people want. The proposal is not located within the Isle of Wight national landscape, nor is it environmentally sensitive." A total of 5 supporting letters were sent to the council, pointing to housing need and defending the proposal as an enhancement of the area without detrimental environmental impacts and substantial pressure on local infrastructure.
This is the second part of the Talking News, read today by me, Morris.
And me, Den.
The County Press honoured at UK Newspaper Awards. The Isle of Wight County Press was praised for its rich mix of stories and strong news coverage at the prestigious Newspaper Awards on Wednesday. The paper was one of the 6 shortlisted in the Best Local Weekly Newspaper category, with News Quest sister paper The Impartial Reporter taking the prize. The county press was commended, with judges saying, celebrating 140 years in print, this paper continues to offer great value with its rich mix of stories and strong news coverage. Gary Cullum, director of the awards, said print is still a force to be reckoned with, and the mission remains unchanged despite the digital revolution transforming news. CP editor Laurie Little said, "We are all absolutely thrilled that the county press has been recognised by the industry as one of the best local weekly newspapers in the country. We're already the best selling, and we can say we're among the very best too. It is testament to our dedicated team of professionally trained reporters who go out and about in our community to meet people and tell their stories. We pack our 80-page newspaper with exclusives and interesting features, and we listen to all the feedback we are given. This year, we've made huge design and layout changes to our print product. We've also put the county press on the map. Within the last week, I've been flying the flag for the paper and the island at both Buckingham Palace, where I met the King, and at Downing Street, where I met the Prime Minister. Thanks to everyone who buys the CP. You are directly contributing to the delivery of trusted news to the island and keeping this heritage brand alive." The Newspaper Awards was held at the London Hilton Bankside. Online, we retain our position as the island's biggest news website by quite some margin. SimilarWeb showed in February we recorded 3,008 million page views when the second biggest website recorded 1.231 million. Our visits for February were 1.789 million when the second biggest website recorded 925,817.
Charity plans new riverside restaurant. A new riverside restaurant could be coming to a mental health and wellbeing centre as part of a scheme to give the site a multifaceted use. Vicky Hayworth, on behalf of the Isauropia Foundation, has put forward plans to the council for a restaurant and a shop selling wellness products at the Medina Valley Centre on Newport's Dodnor Lane, next to the River Medina. At the end of last year, the island-based non-profit organisation received $1 million from the government's Community Ownership Fund to purchase and redevelop the centre. A design and access statement written by consultants ERMC said the Medina Valley Centre was previously a training facility owned by a charity, providing environmental and outdoor education. Isauropia are presently still utilising it for training. They provide 12-week programmes of psycho-educational workshops as well as social activities to island residents, focusing on improving island residents' general well-being. Isauropia need to generate some additional income streams, and to do that, they require the site to be multifaceted. In addition to the workshops, they would like to convert the dining area to a restaurant and run a small shop selling wellness products for its members. They would also like to lease out a proportion of the previous sleeping accommodation, now officers' consultation rooms, and apartment, existing treatment rooms, to other health care providers. ERMC added the converted dining space would be used by staff, Isauropia members, cyclists and walkers during the day, and as a restaurant open to the public in the evening. Visiting the site earlier this year, IW East MP Joe Robertson said, "It was a pleasure to meet with the Isauropia Foundation team and learn about their vision for the Medina Valley Centre. Isoropia does incredible work supporting people across the Isle of Wight with mental health and well-being, and I am proud to have supported their bid for funding. The investment will make a real difference in enhancing the services they provide. In December, Isle of Wight West MP Richard Quigley welcomed the Community Ownership Funds grant as great news for those involved in the project and for islanders who will benefit. Consultation will finish on April the 29th and a decision is expected on June the 24th.
Sky named Isle of Wight Festival sponsor. UK broadcaster Sky has been announced as the headline sponsor for the Isle of Wight Festival. Sky has signed a multi-year deal with the festival in its first ever major festival partnership. The broadcaster will televise the Sea Close Park Festival across Sky Arts, Sky Showcase and Sky Mix as it takes place between Thursday, June the 19th and Sunday, June the 22nd. Sky will also have an on-site presence and offer exclusive content on its YouTube channel. The company has broadcast the Isle of Wight Festival since 2011. Caroline Giddings, Festival Director of the Isle of Wight Festival, said, "We're thrilled to have Sky on board as our headline partner. The brand has had a presence at the festival for more than a decade, thanks to our Sky Arts broadcast partnership, and we're excited to develop that relationship and further enhance the Isle of Wight Festival experience for our customers." Joel Keegan, Director of Partnerships and Promotions at Sky, said, "We're excited to build on our fantastic relationship with the festival and create more unforgettable experiences for music lovers, both at the festival and through our platforms. Isle of Wight Festival 2025 will be headlined by Sting, Stereophonics and Justin Timberlake."
Paramedic Award for Leadership. An Isle of Wight paramedic has been given a national award for her exceptional leadership. Hannah Harrison, a specialist paramedic at Isle of Wight Ambulance Service, IWAS, was recognised by the Association of Ambulance Chief Executives, AACE. Hannah joined the Isle of Wight Ambulance Service as an advanced clinical practitioner in 2022 and, due to her diverse skill set, took on the role of Specialist Practice Lead in 2023, where she was able to identify ways the team could further promote innovation. Hannah said, "I was a little bit overwhelmed when I found out that I had not only been nominated but won the award. I am so grateful for the recognition of my team and proud of the work we do."
Driving instructor who refused refunds is caught uninsured. A former driving instructor has been caught driving illegally and has come under fire for abruptly retiring without refunding his students. Several former students of Julian Cook, owner of Julian's Driving School, allege that he accepted payments for lessons but suddenly ceased providing them, refusing to return their money. His retirement comes after he was caught at the wheel of his driving instructor car without insurance. The controversy surfaced publicly when Becky Brooks took to social media to voice concerns regarding her husband Leon's experience. Leon paid £380 on January 11th for a 10-hour lesson package. Becky explained that Mr. Cook allegedly arrived late on the wrong street for Leon's third lesson. They hadn't been happy with the first two lessons either. Leon managed to complete just 3 hours of the 10-hour package before his fourth lesson, scheduled for January 25th, was cancelled. Mr. Cook initially indicated he would attend, but later changed his mind, stating he was moving house. The fourth lesson never happened, and after nearly a month of silence, Leon contacted Mr. Cook, receiving the reply, "Sorry to say, I am no longer teaching." In messages seen by the county press, Mr. Cook refused Leon's request for a partial refund for the remaining £260, replying, "Sorry Leon, can't do part refunds." Becky told the CP, "We've tried calling and he's blocked our numbers. He has no intentions of engaging with us." Leon's career progression has been negatively impacted as obtaining a driving licence was essential for an upcoming promotion. The couple, parents of 3 children, expressed distress at losing money that Leon had saved from work tips. Following Becky's social media post, several others reported similar experiences. One former student detailed paying £380 up front for 10 lessons, yet Mr. Cook delivered just 1 lesson and subsequently became unreachable, not responding to text, emails or calls. Mr. Cook has recently faced legal trouble. On December the 7th, the then 65-year-old was stopped by police on Fairley Road in Newport, driving in a grey 2007 Toyota Yaris without valid insurance. It remains unclear whether a learner driver was in the vehicle at the time. On January the 28th, Mr. Cook's case was addressed via a single justice procedure after he entered no plea. A magistrate based their sentencing decision solely on written evidence provided and fined Mr. Cook £220, along with £100 costs and £88 surcharge. The Driver and Vehicle Standards Agency, responsible for approving and regulating driving instructors, declined to comment specifically on Mr. Cook's registration, but said the safety of learner drivers is our absolute priority. Since sharing their experience online, Becky said 4 or 5 people contacted her reporting similar situations. Becky explained, "When he said about not refunding, we thought, okay, we get that you might be poorly or you've done wrong and been caught. However, you've still taken people's money." Mr. Cook's website, which remains live at the time of writing, states that students are not eligible for refunds on bulk lesson packages once the first lesson is taken. However, affected students argue this policy should not apply if Mr. Cook himself terminates lessons. Mr. Cook previously advertised himself as a reputable DVSA Grade A instructor, highlighting his passion for driver education and road safety. The CP has made unsuccessful attempts to contact Mr. Cook.
Clever IW college students are something else. Students from the Isle of Wight College have achieved success at the MEI Maths Regional Final. The competition was held at the University of Sussex Brighton campus on Friday, March the 21st, 2025. The event brought together some of the most promising young mathematicians from across the South East. The Isle of Wight College entered 3 teams into the event, each categorised by grade. All 3 teams performed well against a strong field of 8, securing top positions. The team named Ein Two Steins, made up of Lottie Morris, Lenny Jenga, Tyler Pickett and Logan Phillips, claimed first place. 2 further teams from the college also achieved second place finishes. The Funkies team, Elliot Stewart, Liam Cox, Bobby Hope and Blake Bruce Daly, and the Go Forths, Leona Ram, Lily Roy, Summer Broom and George Wilkinson Silk, both delivered strong performances across a series of timed challenges. A spokesperson for the Isle of Wight College said, "We are immensely proud of our students' achievements at the MEI Maths Regional Final. Their success reflects their commitment, hard work and enthusiasm for the subject. Competing at this level and securing such strong results is a credit to both the students and the staff who support them."
Protest at shocking energy price rises. A group of Unite the Union protesters met in Newport on Wednesday afternoon to challenge the increase in energy bills. Holding flyers and a banner by the Queen Victoria Memorial Assembly Point, the group spoke on how the increase in costs will affect the working class and disabled. Lead protester Alan Burgess, 63, told the county press that the changes, which will see annual household energy bills rise by an average £111, were shocking. The changes introduced on April the 1st by government regulator Ofgem now means the average household's annual energy bill will cost £1,849, nearly a 10% increase from the energy cap introduced for April to June of last year. Allen said the government is protecting the millionaires and billionaires and hammering the poor. One campaigner said everyone is concerned because everything is going up. Council tax bills have also recently increased, with a near 5% hike approved by County Hall in February. If you're concerned about your hike in energy prices and want some advice and tips, you can contact Island charity The Footprint Trust. You can give the charity a call on 01983 822282.
CP editor talks ferries with PM at Downing Street. County Press editor Laurie Little got the chance to meet Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer at 10 Downing Street on Monday. It came just days after she went to Buckingham Palace to meet King Charles with County Press chief reporter Oliver Dyer. The Prime Minister was holding a reception for regional media, which included editors of some of our sister titles. Laurie said it has been an incredible week, representing Isle of Wight trusted media at both Buckingham Palace and Downing Street. And I made sure to fly the Isle of Wight flag by telling both the King and the Prime Minister about the county press, putting us on the map. At Downing Street, I was part of a discussion about Isle of Wight ferries with the Prime Minister, BBC South's political editor Peter Henley and regional editor Ben Fishwick. The issue is one we all regularly report on. Sir Keir told the journalists, "Nobody knows your local areas and issues in the way that you do, and I don't think there's any other sort of media outlets, interrogators, interviewers who can put the questions in the way you do, because you understand what's happening on your patch the way nobody else does."
Council to pay mum £4,000 for special needs failings. An Isle of Wight mother is to receive nearly £4,000 from the Isle of Wight Council over failings in her son's special educational needs care. Upholding a complaint against the authority, the local government and social care ombudsman, LGO, said the council caused the mother, known only as Miss C, frustration, time and anxiety, and her son to miss education. On August the 4th, 2022, 2 months after the boy stopped attending a secondary school known as School A due to stress, Miss C asked for an education health care assessment. A final plan was issued on January the 1st, 2023, but Miss C was not sent a decision letter until March the 17th, and only after she contacted officers. After consulting with various schools, the council issued an amended final EHC plan on April the 4th, naming School A as a suitable school for the boy, known as D. However, Miss C did not think School A could meet D's needs and entered in mediation. She said she was assured D would not be returning to School A, and in the interim he would have the provision he needed. The council did not put a tutor in place for D until September the 12th, and on September the 25th, Miss C was forced to appeal to a tribunal after she was told School A was suitable and there was no alternatives. Miss C says throughout the whole process, the council miscommunicated, not kept agreements and delayed, causing her time, trouble and frustration, and caused D to miss education. Accepting it did not ensure D received the provision required, the council apologised and said senior leaders had reminded individual officers and the SEND team about the standards and expectations around communication and delivering on our statutory duties to ensure practice changes with immediate effect. The council apologised for the errors and said it had used the complaint as part of its staff training. The LGO agreed it was an injustice and told the council to pay £3,400 as a symbolic payment for 2 terms of Miss Education for D and make Miss C a payment of £350 for the frustration, time and trouble she was put through.
Bomb scare causes widespread disruption. Newport High Street, surrounding roads and the police station were closed and evacuated last Saturday, triggered by a suspected bomb. The area around Newport Police Station was evacuated at around 10:45 a.m. after a suspected unexploded device was handed in at the front desk. Multiple roads were closed and businesses on the High Street and Pyle Street were affected. Specialist teams from the Explosive Ordnance Disposal (EOD) unit arrived from the mainland shortly before 2:15 p.m. and assessed the device. All previously closed roads, including Newport High Street, Pyle Street, East Street and the left lane on Coppins Bridge, reopened shortly afterwards. During the incident, police officers temporarily took up residence at Cineworld car park and people were directed to Ryde Police Station for urgent services.
New state-of-the-art loos. New £250,000 state-of-the-art public toilets at a popular beach are now open. The toilets at Yaverland Public Car Park in Sandown have been completed, almost 2 years after plans for it were put out for consultation with local residents. Funding for it was secured by Sandown Town Council thanks to a Government Public Works Board loan. Sandown's residents pay the interest on this loan, factored into the annual precept. The previous toilets at Yaverland's Public Car Park, closed 2 years ago, were free to use. The modern replacement will attract a 50p charge to use. In February last year, Sandown Town Council approved obtaining the loan at the popular seafront site opposite the Wild Heart Animal Sanctuary on Colfer Parade. The Town Council also agreed in its budget for this financial year to include provision for the loan, which will be repaid over 12 years, with repayments costing around £27,000 annually. Councillors also agreed the facilities should be of similar design to those already successfully installed in the Bay Area resorts, designed by Danish company Danfo. Danfo's other units in the Bay Area include St John's and Eastern Gardens in Sandown, New Road and Lake Cliff Gardens in Lake, Tower Cottage in Shanklin Old Village, Falcon Cross and the Esplanade at the foot of the cliff lift. The toilets, which also gained planning permission last year, are set to be opened as early as next week, operational in time for Easter and the summer season. The Mayor of Sandown, Councillor Alex Lightfoot, is expected to carry out the ribbon-cutting duties. The new facility includes a family-friendly cubicle with baby-changing facility and designed for people with mobility issues, together with 3 standard unisex cubicles and 2 external showers. The toilets are made of fire-retardant materials and are supplied with a bin to discard needles. A spokesperson for Sandown Town Council said the beauty of them is if it catches fire, it will not spread throughout the toilet block. It is very contained.
Red Funnel rebuffs administration talk. Red Funnel insists it is in a resilient financial position as it seeks to quash untrue talk of administration. Prior to the publication of its accounts for 2023, CEO Fran Collins has told the county press the firm is in a very strong position. Although appearing as overdue on Companies House, the Cross Solent operator has confirmed it did file its audited financial statements before the March 27th deadline. Financial statements were prepared and audited on a going concern basis, meaning the company is working with interested parties for future investment, the CP is told. Ahead of their release, Ms Collins revealed the company has seen a reduction in profitability, but is reporting an increase in turnover. She also confirmed no dividends were paid to shareholders in 2023. Red Funnel has also secured financial backing from the firm's lenders for at least the next 18 months, she said. Ms Collins said, within a climate of high inflation and low consumer confidence, we maintained market resilience with some segments demonstrating a post-COVID recovery, leading to a 10.4% increase in turnover. The Red Jet service continued to recover towards pre-COVID levels, with passenger numbers up 8% and most vehicle passenger numbers in line with prior years, except for coach travel, which reported a 4% increase. Ms Collins said the firm continued to absorb significant upward cost pressures, including rises in inflation, fuel costs and labour costs. The cost increases reduced profitability compared to prior years, but with 2023 earnings before interest, taxation, depreciation and amortisation of £11.9 million, leaving Red Funnel in a resilient position, she said. Ms Collins also said rumours of current or possible administration are categorically untrue. She said, we are in a very strong position with an ambitious future that takes us well beyond the investment process currently underway, and are fully focused on ensuring that Red Funnel is properly funded to operate sustainable and responsibility for decades to come. Looking forward, the company has recently entered a partnership with Artemis, which will lead to the construction of a new Red Jet vessel, as well as the design and build of a more modern vehicle fleet.
Post-crash repairs to hub put on hold. Work to repair significant damage to the Broadway Centre in Sandown caused by a car crashing into it earlier this year may not get underway until after the summer. The incident on February the 17th saw an elderly driver go into the popular community building in their new Cupra Leon automatic. The car sped forward, crashing into the timber-framed building. The Broadway Centre, a multi-use community facility, suffered major structural damage in the crash, which included a significant dent near its entrance and large cracks in its walls. It's understood the driver escaped serious injury and no one in the building was hurt. To assess whether the plumbing and pipework were damaged, the wall behind the impacted area inside the building's main hall had to be removed. Fortunately, the heating system remained intact. The centre was closed temporarily to assess and survey the damage and to determine if it was safe to use. During this time, the car park was completely blocked off for more than a week as a precaution against further subsidence. The damaged area of the building has been cordoned off with metal fencing. The Town Council said the building is still accommodating community groups that have booked space to hold their meetings and activity sessions. We've accommodated most of the groups who use the centre, but we've had to juggle things around, said Sandown Town Clerk Richard Priest. The building is now in the hands of insurance companies and further survey work, which could take several weeks to complete, he added. A surveyor estimated the building work itself could take up to 2 months to complete, which could mean the building will not be fully functional until after the summer months. The Broadway Centre was rebuilt in 2018 and offers a range of rooms for hire, with Sandown Town Council's offices based there. Following the collision, support was also offered by Christchurch, based next door to the building.
School pride in outstanding pupils. A primary school has been praised for its outstanding pupils as well as their inspirational head teacher. Following a recent visit to Holy Cross Catholic Primary School in East Cowes, inspectors described pupils as being exceptionally respectful and kind towards each other, with their behaviour being exemplary. The Catholic Schools Inspectorate, CSI, the national body which inspects Catholic schools, awarded the school an overall rating of good with 4 of the other 9 areas being seen as outstanding. The school was last visited by the CSI in 2021, when it was given a requires improvement rating. In the latest report, the school's head teacher, Lucy Banks, was commended for her clear and determined leadership. Reacting to the findings, she said, "We are thrilled with the outcome of the report and were particularly pleased that the hard work and dedication of all our staff was clearly recognised by the inspectors." Outlining how the school can improve, inspectors said the primary school should ensure that pupils know what they need to do to improve their learning in religious education. The report also said staff should ensure that all teachers use questioning effectively to deepen learning in religious education. The Catholic Schools Inspectorate visit is separate to an Ofsted inspection.
Island Heroes crowned. The third Vectis Radio Isle of Wight Community Awards has celebrated the island's unsung heroes. The award ceremony took place on March the 28th at Cafe Azola in Newport, with more than 90 people in attendance. Entertainment for the evening was provided by Huxley Magic. Maggie Curry, event organiser, said the atmosphere was buzzing and everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. The support from all the organisations for each other was humbling to see. I am so pleased with the success of the event and how it raises awareness of these organisations, a number of which I had never heard of. She thanked the independent judges and Steph Burgess from Cafe Ozola for sponsoring the event. Natural Enterprise was the big winner, taking the Community Project of the Year award. The Isle of Wight Prostate Cancer Support Group also won big, taking silver in the Community Project of the Year and gold in the New Community Project of the Year award. Isoropia took gold in the People-Focused Community Project of the Year. Cats Protection won the Animal-Focused Community Project of the Year. The Kafuta Tumbung School Trust took the Island-Based International Project of the Year. Tracy Asher and Peter Skinner won Fundraiser of the Year, while Carol Court was named Volunteer of the Year. Jamie Webster from Reno Drain was named the Inspirational Person of the Year, and Sarah Scotcher of White Strollers was named the Community Champion. The overall community hero voted for by the public went to Carol Court, Ability Dogs for Young People. Ian Mack, Vectis radio station manager and compere for the evening, said, "Once again, I was humbled to be in the same room as all of these people who work tirelessly for our island community. Let's continue to celebrate and support them all year round. Without their tireless work, this island would grind to a halt." He extended his gratitude to Cafe Isola and the headline sponsor for this year.
Tom Cruise super yacht drops anchor. The Isle of Wight welcomed the eye-catching luxury super yacht Maverick, named after the iconic Tom Cruise character. The 44-metre yacht Maverick, built by the esteemed Italian shipyard Cantieri della Marche, made a quick pit stop at Shepherd's Marina in Cowes. Officially launched in 2023, the vessel combines exceptional long-range cruising capabilities with the highest standards of luxury and comfort. Officially named Lieutenant Peter Maverick Mitchell, after Tom Cruise's legendary character from the film Top Gun, the yacht is owned by German entrepreneur and investor Tom Schroeder. Schroeder, known to be a huge fan of the Top Gun films, has mentioned in previous interviews that he has watched them numerous times. The yacht includes several visual tributes to the films. Most notably, its design features distinctive black side wings on the top deck, intentionally crafted to resemble the angled twin tails of the F-14A Tomcat jet featured in the 1986 blockbuster. The sophisticated interiors boast unique Top Gun memorabilia, including an official photograph from the movie, personally signed by Tom Cruise. Maverick accommodates up to 14 guests, catered to by a crew of 9. It has a top speed of 14 knots and an impressive cruising range of 5,000 nautical miles.
Pub owner thinks big. The new owner of a popular Isle of Wight seaside pub has set his sights on transforming it into a destination venue 365 days of the year. Having recently completed the purchase of the boathouse, Seaview, Nick Warner has revealed his future plans for the venue in an exclusive chat with the county press. Nick, who has 7 other pubs, bars and restaurants spanning from Bournemouth to Ascot, said the Seaview venue is unique to his others. It's a beautiful location on a beautiful beach, and I just thought, why not? You don't get many of these on the mainland. Initially, he said, the plan is to run the pub as is, with some minor changes. We're about to go into the summer season, so for us to make any changes would be madness, he said. It's going to be the same people. The staff are happy to move forward and see what we can do with the business. Then, potentially around September, October, he said he wants to close the pub for some refurbishment works. His big aim is to get the pub up together and make it more sustainable in out-of-season months. At the moment, it is highly seasonal, he said. I want it to be more 365 days a year trading and more focused on local people and the local area and a destination venue during the winter months. We're never going to do the sales we do in the summer, but it's definitely going to be more sustainable than it is currently. Nick said he wants the pub to have a cosy atmosphere in the winter and be inviting for dog walkers and passers-by. For the past 15 years, the boathouse has been run by Inns of Distinction, which also owns the Fishbourne Inn. Martin Bullock, owner of Inns of Distinction, said, since the COVID pandemic, trading on the island has been extremely difficult, but he is very proud of what the company achieved at the boathouse. We thank all of our customers that have supported us over this time, and we hope they will continue to support the loyal team that are carrying on the good work there, he said.
Potholes hold up. Residents of a village are still no closer to finding out when major roadworks to repair a pothole-riddled main route will be carried out. Wroxall has come under scrutiny for having what some say are among the worst roads on the island. Rodney Downer, councillor for Wroxall, Lowerville and Bonchurch, has repeatedly asked the local authorities about when significant repairs will occur. Councillor Downer, a Wroxall resident, previously described the village roads as awful and in a terrible state. He, together with Wroxall parish councillors, recently met with Island Roads representatives to discuss the state of the village's main road. Wroxall was ordered by the council to undergo emergency road repairs last month, following a county press investigation. The surfaces of St John's Road and the B3327 are said to be blighted by potholes and damage, resembling a cobbled street. Their condition is said to have worsened after the closure of Leeson Road in Bonchurch due to a landslide in December 2023. This closure resulted in Wroxall becoming a main route for traffic heading from Ventnor towards Shanklin, Sandown and the East Wight. No clear timeline for major repairs was established during the meeting with Island Roads. An Island Roads spokesperson said, during these discussions, we assured them we would take all steps necessary to ensure the main road through the village was kept in a safe condition until more permanent work can be completed. We will, however, have to discuss the timescales for this further with the Isle of Wight Council, given the inconvenience this work will cause, particularly as we approach summer. Councillor Downer said the meeting was positive, but expressed concerns that work is unlikely to start until after the tourist season ends. There would have to be a hard closure, he said. The roads need a hell of a lot of work doing to them, compounded by Leeson Road closing after the landslide, he said. Road safety campaigners also voiced concerns, with David Grucock of the Keep Ventnor Moving campaign saying they have become something like an old cart track in places, with more and more potholes appearing.
Absence rates above UK average. The Isle of Wight Council has said improving school attendance is an ongoing effort after new figures show the persistent absence rate is considerably higher than the national average. If data released last week by the Department of Education, the rate of primary, secondary and SEN school children who miss 10% of their school sessions or more is 27.33%. The national average is 18.4%. The overall absence rate is also above the national average, which with 9.03% absence rate on the island in comparison with the UK rate of 6.6%. An Isle of Wight Council spokesperson said, "School absence happens for many reasons which can be complicated for some children. Factors like health, family, circumstances, socio-economic challenges and vulnerability such as poverty, social care involvement or special needs influence absence rates." The Isle of Wight Council support families, schools and professionals by reducing barriers to attendance and working with other agencies. Formal action, like penalties for term time holidays, is a last resort when other efforts don't work or aren't appropriate.
And now we go on to Wight memories and nostalgia. A peculiar kind of entertainment. Bench throwing, long distance darts and a spitting contest. That would be Yarmouth then, because these are just three of the things that have passed for entertainment in Yarmouth in years gone by. The spitting contest refers to one of the most hallowed and exclusive clubs on the island. Yarmouth's Lean and Spit Club, where salty sea dogs of yore could pass the time leaning and, well, spitting. Up until the 1930s, the Lean and Spit Club met in a shelter on the quayside which was already 100 years old. It was a famous Yarmouth landmark which had become quite an institution and a gathering place for local sea dogs until 1933, when it was decided to demolish the ancient hut. According to the county press reports on its demolition, to become a member of the club, whose very timbers must reek with sailors' yarns and the fumes of plug tobacco, no one was considered qualified who could not expectorate into the water while leaning leisurely against the upright furthest from the quay edge. Well, the hours must have flown by, not to mention the spit. Today we have a posh swing bridge across the Yar, which was opened in 1987, but until 1863 the only way to cross the river was by ferry boat. That year a privately owned toll bridge was built, and for the next 70 years anyone wanting to cross the Yar had to pay for the privilege, a penny for foot passengers and up to 2 shillings and 6 for coaches and lorries. In 1934, the Isle of Wight Council decided to buy the bridge and take over its running, and amid much rejoicing, the tolls came to an end. The following week, the county press reported, the freeing of the Yar Bridge did not pass without celebration. A hastily arranged jazz band, consisting of a number of the young men of the town, struck up a merry tune as the church clock chimed the hour of deliverance. On Sunday, many motorists celebrated their new freedom. There was an almost constant stream of traffic over the bridge during the afternoon.
The last ticket for toll on Yar Bridge was purchased by Mr. F. Barham, driver, and Mr. Williams, conductor of Brown's bus service on Saturday. As if the dizzy whirl of expectorating contests was not enough excitement for the Yarmouth set, some locals had taken up the hallowed art of bench throwing. In 1948, the clerk to Yarmouth Council reported that he had ordered 6 new metal seats for the pier in place of the wooden ones, declaring the reason is that the benches are often thrown into the sea. Wooden ones floated away and were lost, whereas metal seats sank and could then be recovered. A Sunday night in March 1961 saw the debut of another Yarmouth sport, long-distance dart throwing. Fortified with ale, a late-night reveller in Yarmouth Square bet his friends he could hit the clock face of the church with a dart. Similarly tanked up, his friends took the bet, and reveller, using a catapult, unleashed a dart into the dark night sky. Amazingly, in what would otherwise be hailed as quite an impressive feat, he actually managed to hit the target. To his horror, and probably a secret sense of satisfaction, he scored an ecclesiastical double top, and the dart lodged itself firmly in the clock face. The laws of physics came into play when the minute hand eventually came up against the dart, which stopped the clock and damaged the mechanism. For years afterwards, the time in Yarmouth depended on where you were stood. There was a minute's difference between the time shown on the north and west faces. In 1964, the County Council caused uproar when they announced plans to build a fixed span bridge over the River Yar. Yarmouth councillors were nothing if not practical, as the county press reported. Mr. G. Osmond declared, "If we are going to look 100 years ahead, the people will not want bridges. They will all be in outer space." Mr. Chandler replied, "Yes, but there is a little interval in between."
And now we go into my view. We can't afford to ignore the messages in TV drama. This week, like millions of viewers, I watched Adolescence, the hard-hitting Netflix series created by Stephen Graham and Jack Thorne. The show lays bare the devastating consequences of toxic masculinity, focusing on how this mindset increasingly infiltrates the lives of young boys, especially through the amplification of problematic figures like Andrew Tate on social media. It paints a troubling picture of a generation growing up with a definition of masculinity shaped by hyper-aggressive, emotionally repressive ideals. A culture that, if unchecked, will continue to cause irreversible harm. What's especially alarming is how social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp and Snapchat, serve as breeding grounds for the normalisation of dangerous behaviour. Nude photos circulate in private chats, and online conversations are dominated by harmful ideologies that degrade women and glorify toxic power dynamics. This is a world many young boys are growing up in, and it's one that even here on the Isle of Wight we cannot afford to ignore. Despite our rural setting, we are not immune to the global reach of these influences. It's easy to blame the internet and social media for perpetuating these behaviours, but the real issue runs deeper. The internet may amplify the voices of toxic influencers, but the root of the problem lies in our reluctance to have open, honest conversations with boys about their emotions, struggles, and the values that should define their relationships. We often fail to teach them what healthy, loving relationships look like, how to express their feelings, or to challenge harmful stereotypes that define manliness. 2 years ago, I staged Ride Boy at Department, a play exploring similar themes. It followed a group of young island men navigating a world demanding they conform to traditional ideas of masculinity: tough, unemotional, dominant. The play aimed to spark conversations about the pressure boys face to suppress their feelings, adopt harmful behaviours and prove their worth. Add grief or difficult life events into the mix, and that's when things can become explosively dangerous.
But adolescence takes this conversation even further. The series reveals how social media doesn't just amplify toxic masculinity, it creates an environment where these ideas circulate freely, passed around like currency. Influencers like Andrew Tate amass large followings, exposing boys to a warped version of masculinity that promotes misogyny, aggression and emotional detachment. This is a dangerous culture that infiltrates everyday conversations. Yes, the internet and social media play a role, but they are not the root cause. The real issue is how society fails to equip boys with the tools they need to understand and process their emotions. From a young age, they're told to man up and taught that vulnerability is a weakness. These messages come not just from online influencers, but from our culture, echoed by parents, teachers and friends, reinforcing the idea that masculinity means being tough, emotionally distant and in control. This dynamic exists here on the Isle of Wight, where traditional ideas of masculinity are often emphasised, leading to harmful consequences. What we need is a cultural shift, a change in how we raise our sons. We must teach them it's okay to feel, to express those feelings, and to seek help when needed. We must show them that masculinity isn't about dominance, but about respect for themselves and others. Only when we start having these open conversations can we begin to dismantle the culture of toxic masculinity that's been allowed to thrive for far too long. Ride Boy was an attempt to give voice to young men trapped by these societal expectations. Adolescence takes this conversation to a larger stage, showing just how much of an impact toxic masculinity can have when it goes unchallenged. The time for change is now. If we want to protect future generations, we must start by having the hard conversations, both online and offline. Talk to your sons, colleagues and mates. Don't leave it until you're picking up the pieces. Start today.
The unsung heroes of the pandemic. David Randini, magician to key worker. In February 2020, I said to Mrs. Randini, this was the busiest I'd seen my diary since 2009. I was busy with my work as a magician, but things were about to change. Coronavirus hit. So what do you do when you work in the entertainment industry? Sit back and take the government help, or go and help the community? I chose the latter. What skills did I have? Well, I could drive. As a former officer in the St John's ambulance, I had first aid skills. And lastly, my experience of all the years of working with people with disabilities. First, I delivered prescriptions for a chemist. This was before the government introduced their scheme. Secondly, on the day of lockdown, I was approached by a pizza company to deliver to isolating people as their staff were frightened to do so. I remember the surreal feeling of driving around the empty island roads, only seeing the odd delivery van or police car. Lastly, I went to help at a home for people with severe behavioural problems and autism. Suddenly, I was a triple key worker. This article is to salute those who had no choice but to work on the front line in the care sector during this crisis. Working in the care sector during the pandemic was like entering an alternative universe. There was a strong feeling of fear, not for themselves but for those they were looking after, knowing that if they got this disease, that would be it. Their immune systems would be too weak to survive. The staff were from a background of all ages and walks of life, including an ex-dancer, a military man, and someone from Marks and Spencer's. The youth providing energy and exuberance, and the older ones providing life experiences. All were using their past experiences to care for the people they were looking after. The shifts were long and the work was hard, but most of all very rewarding. I would often start at 8 a.m. and finish at 10 p.m. Most of the staff were shattered yet passionate. The unsung heroes were the night staff, who would often start at 3 p.m. and then finish at 8 a.m. the next morning. All had the same mission, to protect the residents, yet still give them a quality of life. For nearly 2 years, through constant testing, temperature taking and good hygiene, we managed to do it. But eventually the inevitable happened and COVID hit in December 2021. I was part of a small group who became the COVID team, looking after 2 residents in an isolated area. One didn't even know he had it, but the other was very ill indeed. I told my family that Christmas Day for us was to be delayed, and I spent all day Christmas Day and Boxing Day looking after the 2 residents. I had December the 27th off to spend time with my family. Then the news came that the poorly resident became seriously ill and the COVID team was moved to the hospital. I was to spend the next 3 weeks in the COVID ward at St Mary's, but that's another story. In my time in the care sector, I witnessed young and old working together to protect and care for the most vulnerable in our society. They really were the heroes behind closed doors, and none of them were paid enough for the fantastic job they did.
And now we're moving on to What's On. This is a headline that reads Classical Night Under the Stars. The grounds of Osborne House are to host an evening of classical music this summer, all in aid of Mountbatten. On Saturday the 26th of July, the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra will be performing a selection of Brahms classics from Elgar to Tchaikovsky, from Mascagni to Vaughan Williams at the former holiday home of Queen Victoria. Guests are invited to bring their picnics, sit back and lose themselves to classical favourites under the stars and a spectacular firework finale. Chief Executive of Mountbatten, Nigel Hartley, MBE, said, "What glorious surroundings to enjoy an open-air event with the Bournemouth Symphony Orchestra. Thank you to the team behind Osborne Proms 25 for organising this event to raise money for Mountbatten."
And what's on in Shanklin Theatre throughout April? On Friday the 4th of April, starting at 7:30 p.m, is Fleetwood Mac. Tuesday the 8th to Thursday the 10th of April, Out of Sight, Out of Murder. Saturday the 12th of April at 7 p.m, Ian Sterling. Thursday the 17th to Monday the 21st of April, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Wednesday the 23rd of April at 7:30 is Aled Jones. And the new Spring 2025 brochure is now out.
Lecture on English Caricature. A lecture exploring the world of English caricature will be held next week. The Art Society's Isle of Wight branch will host English caricature from Hogarth to Punch at 2 p.m. on Tuesday, April the 8th. Andrew Davis, an extramural tutor from London, Essex and the Open University, will present the lecture at Northwood House in Cowes. He will discuss the lively and exuberant nature of English caricature. The focus will be on how caricatures have always depicted the true nature of humans, from the works of William Hogarth to David Lowe. Mr. Davis has published 9 books, is a frequent radio and television contributor, and has lectured globally, including organising walks to complement his lectures. He will delve into the world of caricature, providing insights into artists such as Rowlandson and Gilray. The lecture is open to visitors with places available for £10 per person. Bookings must be made in advance at info@theatresocietyisleofwight.org.uk.
And now we move on to letters. Bricks brought back memories. Ken Abernethy, Calbourne ex-Newtown Harbour Master. Read the Heritage article about bricks, County Press, 21st of the 3rd, 2025. When I was Harbour Master in Newtown, there were brick ovens on the East Spit, run by a family called the Prangnells. Our chapel was constructed using bricks from that brickfield. We have bricks with the family name embossed into the bricks into the Elm Lane Chapel cottage. The house on the East Spit has numerous bricks with animals and keys decorating walls. The chimneys were spectacular. Part of a section was retrieved by the National Trust almost 40 years ago. The brickmaker challenged other brickmakers to produce more bricks in a day than he could. He was unbeaten. I seem to remember his name was Albert or Alfred Prangnell.
Fly-posted posters ruining towns. Brock Silver of Newport writes, "Sadly, the unscrupulous promoters are back and ruining our towns and villages with their scruffy litter again. This wrestling company is appearing at Medina Theatre, but the posters are being fly-posted everywhere. In my opinion, it is the responsibility of the venue to ensure regular acts performing in said venue should comply with the local advertising rules and remove any mess involved in doing so. This promoter simply sends a few blokes in a van to plaster every available surface with litter using sellotape, then disappears to do the same all over the mainland. I saw identical posters stuck on empty shop windows in Portsmouth on the 22nd, different venue. I don't think anyone wants their service unless it's in the correct place and paid for. As I'm the one that invariably ends up cleaning up the mess, one less job would suit me perfectly."
High risk and no discussion. Marianne Rumans of Bembridge writes, "I totally agree with Alan Jones's letter, the County Press, 28th of the 3rd, 2025, regarding the possibility of devolution. This recent decision of the councils is extremely high risk. It could be beneficial or it could be disastrous. We are going to be in bed with Hampshire, which is huge compared to this tiny island. Apparently, we are going to share a mayor with Hampshire, who will probably derive from Hampshire. I personally do not think that this proposal has been thoroughly debated and discussed, especially with us, the people. We could end up receiving a pittance from the government."
And Michael Toogood, Bembridge, writes, "Prices rising. Whitelink notwithstanding their recent cancellation of so many services, they still seem to email their multi-link customers to advise of an additional mid-year rise in pass prices of an average of £3.25 per crossing. Whilst the precise figures aren't given here or on their website, this is an extra 10% on their otherwise annual fare increases. They blame this on the increased employers' national insurance, rising from 13.8% to 15%. I fail to understand why such a relatively small cost increase for them could lead to such a huge increase in prices to their customers. Surely wage costs cannot be more than 10% of their overall costs, so this increase must only justify price rises of less than 1%. I can only conclude that they must consider their customers stupid or powerless to challenge this awful monopoly. Perhaps we should expect more frequent price rises blaming the weather or the football scores. Whilst on the subject of demeaning their customers, isn't the sign of the approach to Gunwharf that ferries are delayed owing to exceptional high tides easily resolved by buying a copy of the Portsmouth tide timetables?
Unacceptable. Janet Taplin of Shanklin writes, "On March the 27th, there was a burst water main on the Isle of Wight at 11 a.m. At 4 p.m, we noticed a drop in pressure to almost nothing. Having spent 2 hours on live chat and a further 2 hours on phone calls, we were promised a delivery of water, as we are on the priority list being over 75 and my husband is diabetic. After being told water was on its way at 4 p.m, we still had not received any water at 10 p.m, and yet dozens of bottles were delivered to the clinic next door when they do not open until 8:30 a.m. the next morning. They would be sitting there all night while we had none. We were unable to have a drink, wash or flush the toilet, a health hazard. No one answered the phone at Southern Water, could give us an estimate of delivery time of the bottled water or when the service would be restored, and we were unable to get to the water stations set up. The last agent I spoke to at 9 p.m. promised to ring me back that night but did not. This is unacceptable behaviour towards someone of any age, but especially when we are elderly. I shall be making a formal complaint to Southern Water and will expect a refund on our charges.
Brings us to the end of this week's Talking News, and so it's goodbye from me, Morris.
And it's goodbye from me, Den. The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the Scaffolding News follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. Today we make no apology for returning to the issue of welfare reform and the effect the proposed changes are likely to have on the finances and therefore the lives of blind and partially sighted people. It may only have been a fortnight ago that the Work and Pensions Secretary set out her stall for getting people back to work, and that included making benefits like personal independence payments, known as PIPs, harder to qualify for because they were thought to be discouraging some people from looking for a job. But it's hard to escape the idea that this is as much to do with saving money as it is about giving a firm shove to the workless, reinforced by the Chancellor feeling she had to go back to the well in her spring statement to take more money from the welfare budget. Hardly surprising then that we are hearing from many worried visually impaired listeners, wondering what this is going to mean to them and not hearing that information from anyone else. Listeners like these.
Nothing has been said yet about disability living allowance, but given that, that it's felt the pensioners have enough money and we can lose our heating allowance, I'm really literally losing sleep over whether the next announcement along the line is going to be that the disability living allowance will go.
Well, I'm on personal independent payment and I get the enhanced rate of both the mobility and the daily living rate. I think they should simplify it a little bit when it comes to filling in the personal independent payment form so that it makes it a little bit easier so we can understand the scriptures. We need to really make it so we understand exactly what they actually are and why they need to use the point scoring, what emphasis is the actual point scoring. Why do we need to use that system?
I get PIP, that's personal independent payment, and I'm on ESA as well.
So that's employment and support allowance.
That's right. They're my main source of income, so they're essential. The government's saying that they're going to get really tight with people on PIP. Is everyone going to have to be reassessed? Are people going to have to reapply for it? They haven't really been very clear. It's scary.
Frankie, Kelly and Joy. Well, we'll try to answer those and many more of your questions, or as many as we can fit in anyway. We invited back to In Touch Dominic Milne, the RNIB's legal rights officer, and also Kevin Mulhern, visually impaired journalist and broadcaster who's been covering the issue of benefits for blind people for the best part of 5 decades. Indeed, before blind and partially sighted people were even entitled to any. We also made repeated requests for Disability Minister Sir Stephen Timms to come on to this week's In Touch. But at the time of recording, no one from the department has come back to us on this. We've simply been told that at the moment there is nothing more to share on this beyond what's contained in the Green Paper. But here is Sir Stephen Timms answering questions in Parliament on Thursday, where it was being suggested to him that these changes had been rushed.
The changes won't happen for over 18 months until November 2026. That's when the change will take effect. And they won't affect current recipients of personal independence payment until their first award review after November 2026. And typically, review periods are 3 years. So this is definitely not being rushed. It will happen in a properly planned and staged and careful way.
So, attempts at reassurance there. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. Dominic Milne, if we could start with PIPs, personal independence payments, just remind people what they are, and as far as blind and partially sighted people are concerned, under the current rules, who's eligible?
PIP is actually a benefit which is designed to meet the extra costs derived from being disabled. It works on an assessment process where they have a series of activities, such things as preparing food, dressing, washing, reading, engaging with people socially. And you score points in each category. And when you get to a certain level of points, which is 8 points for the standard daily living rate, you would get that. Or if you get 12 points, you might get the enhanced rate. It's very important, Peter, to point out that some of the messaging from the government has been a little misleading on this, in that they seem to be linking PIP to work. PIP is not an out-of-work benefit. And in fact, many PIP recipients are actually working because they're receiving their PIP. It allows them to pay for such things as services for support in the home, travel, healthcare costs such as expensive glasses. And it's important to point out that what you get from PIP won't always even cover those costs. In 2024, the amount extra needed by blind and partially sighted people on average was between £65 a week and £156 a week. And we found that from our research as well, that because of the cost of living crisis, some 50% of blind and partially sighted people are actually having to use their PIP to cover essential bills. So they weren't actually even going on the things that they were essentially designed for.
But these changes to eligibility, they could have quite an effect on people actually getting PIP, couldn't they? And people who might apply for it in the future.
They absolutely will, yeah, because what they're looking at doing now, well, I say now, in 18 months when this change comes into effect, you will need to score 4+ points in at least one category in the daily living activities in order to receive PIP. So even if you receive a series of 2 points and reach the 8 or 12 points necessary, you won't get the benefit unless you've had a 4+ point score in one category. And a great many people, blind and partially sighted people, will only get 2 point scores unless, and this is the big kind of caveat here, when they get help and assistance, and often, well, particularly when RNIB provide it, we will then very often at mandatory reconsideration or at appeal, very frequently, we will then get them that 4 point plus score. However, we have to point out an initial claim, an awful lot of people will only still be getting 2 points and they won't get the daily living award if that's the case.
Right. Now, it's the only specific eligibility change that was mentioned when Liz Kendall introduced her green paper. Who's being targeted here then?
The rationale is that they're going to remove the benefit perhaps from people who they figure may not be quite as disabled as other people. They're actually estimating that by the end of the decade, 800,000 people nationally who would receive PIP on the current rules will not be able to anymore. So there is a big national saving that they're looking to make.
Right, we'll come back to that. But just to give you an idea of why this is important, this is what one of our emailers, James, said about this move.
One problem with the use of the term disability is that it's vague and we each tend to imagine what it may refer to. We need specifics. We need collectively to make the case that blindness doesn't just affect one area of life. It is for many of us 101 daily challenges, obstacles, barriers, things we can't do without help, things that take longer, things that may be messier or even more dangerous without some level of assistance.
So, I mean, that's it from somebody who's thought quite deeply about this. Kevin Mulhern, on this issue of eligibility, you've had your ear to the ground and also looking at the Department of Work and Pensions' own impact assessments of the effect it's likely to have. What do they tell you?
What it tells you is, that, as Dominic just said very succinctly, that they're saying by the end of the decade there'll be 800,000 people less getting it. Well, half of that will be new people applying, but half of that number, nigh on 400,000, are going to lose it in the reassessments. Now, that means it's going to be a very rigorous reassessment. And this 4-point thing you really cannot overestimate. The fact was, when this was introduced originally, it was a cumulative thing. You didn't have to say, I can't walk, I can't do this or I can't do that. You actually just said what you found difficulty with, and as Dominic said, it built up and you got it. They are obviously turning against that as a principle. One of the problems that I see is, it's as your listener said a minute ago, people have a perspective. How do you actually measure what happened to me the other day, genuinely, walking down the street, didn't realise I'd choken in some dog poo. Went to a friend's house. I had to pay to get their carpet cleaned the other day. I'm not joking. This is true. It took a long time to get it. Most of the disability world 50 years ago thought, well, the blind can work. They can get jobs. They haven't got the physical barriers to get through. This is a good benefit. And it looks to me as if almost 30 years on, sorry to say, another Labour government is trying to get rid of it because they tried 30 years ago.
I want to come on to this question of the reviews, because the previous government actually were saying, I'll direct this to you, Dominic, were saying that people with long-term disabilities, which weren't likely to improve, and that goes for a great many visually impaired people, shouldn't be subjected to constant reviews. Now, is that likely to be followed from what you're hearing?
They are making noises to that effect, yes. And they have been looking in the last few years about the idea of having what they would call a severe health conditions group, under which if you're in that group and if you have a condition which isn't going to improve and it's clear that it won't improve, that they will put you in this group and then you won't have to be reviewed. They have a system currently called a light touch review, where if somebody is in that bracket, they will only maybe have a review every 10 years if your condition is not likely to change. They're looking to see how they can improve that. It's not clear yet exactly how it's going to fall exactly.
I'd like to move to one specific thing, which a lot of our listeners have said they're worried about and haven't really heard anything about. There are also those people who are over 65, older people anyway, who either stayed on disability living allowance when PIPs was first introduced, which was back in 2013, or they've remained on PIPs when they reached retirement age. People like Joy.
I've been registered blind all my life, but with a little bit of sight. 2 years ago, I lost that sight I had in an accident. Now I really, really need that money. It's the only benefit I get.
Since you were on DLA, since you've been on DLA, have you ever been reviewed?
No.
No.
I need a lot more transport now. If you don't learn to walk with a white stick when you're young, it's a whole lot harder learning when you get older. So I either need somebody to walk with me or drive me, or I need to pay for taxis. Things are much more expensive, and I might just lose the active life that I've got.
Dominic, weren't such people told that these were benefits for life? I seem to remember that that's what it actually said initially when people like Joy got their notification of sort of staying on DLA or receiving DLA.
There's a couple of things that we need to look at on that, Peter. One is that if you were on DLA and you were over 65 on the 8th of April 2013, so if you were already over 65, which was the retirement age at that point, then you will keep receiving your DLA. It's different, though, for people who were under 65 on that date, 8th of April 2013. If you were getting DLA then, and if you haven't been invited yet to claim PIP, or in Scotland it would be the adult disability payment, this will happen at some point in the future, either when there's a change of circumstances that you have, such as reaching pension age, or if you have a change of circumstances in your sort of physical situation. There's no reason for us to assume from this green paper that would change in any way. We had somebody come to us, to me the other day, and they asked actually whether or not, because they are on DLA and they would be subject to review, they were asking whether or not they ought to maybe try and do it before this change comes into effect in November 26. Now, the answer to that, and there may be people out there in this situation, is possibly yes, but please don't do anything rashly. Do get advice and help. and have a look at your situation in terms of what you would get on PIP. There's no point in making any move if it's going to risk any award you've got. Contact RNIB or another advice agency and get some advice on whether it's going to be a good idea for you to do so.
So for someone like Joy, though, seems a reasonable chance that she won't have to face another review. Is that fair comment, or do we just not know at the moment?
It's difficult to say exactly. I would think from Joy's perspective, having listened to her, that she should be all right. But I would still very much recommend that Joy gets some help if possible when it comes to making any change, or if she gets the request to make a change.
If there are going to be all these reviews, Kevin, this is going to be quite expensive for the government, isn't it?
Well, it is. And I'm just wondering, why not employ disabled people to do the reviews? And quite frankly, would be a damn sight better at doing it. But can I just pick up on something that Dominic was saying, which I agree with? If you talk about, is it November or September 2026
November.
when it starts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Then you've got to 27 to 28 to 29 to 30. You've got 4 years in which they say they're going to deny PIPs to just over 400,000 people and take it off another almost 400,000 people. Now, that is very radical, and we need to know how they're going about it. Let's get carried away and think that DLA or PIPs makes you rich. It really doesn't. We're talking about people, by and large, on the margins.
How much are these decisions up for discussion, Dominic, and how much are they a fait accompli? Because for some of this, some things are at consultation periods, aren't there?
Well, in terms of the 4+ point score being necessary in a category, that is not up for consultation.
Not at all.
There's also a change to the work capability assessment that we haven't addressed yet. Well, that's being scrapped in 2028, and also they're chopping the money in half next April, or more or less in half, for people who are in receipt of what they're calling the health element of universal credit. They aren't up for consultation. They are actually things that are going to happen. Other things that are going on, like some of the things we've mentioned in relation to the assessment process, there is actually going to be an overall assessment as well of PIP carried out by Stephen Timms, looking at the assessment process generally. They're actually also changing the way they're going to assess people. Only about 7% currently have face-to-face assessments, and that's dropped from 77% pre-pandemic. Now, obviously, the pandemic made them change that, but they want to get that back up to a much higher percentage of face-to-face assessments because they consider that to be more accurate.
But it depends who does them, doesn't it? Which is what listeners are saying to us. It depends who does those assessments and what their qualifications are and what their knowledge is about, well, in our clientele's case, visually impaired people.
Yeah, we've had real problems with that in the past. We've got many case stories and examples of people who've informal observations have been used of them walking in the assessment room or finding something in their bag, things like this, things that just aren't really relevant. And they're being used as evidence for people not to get the benefit. Now, there has been some commitment on the part of the DWP to improve the assessment process, get it a little bit more specialised, and get more training in for their assessors to make sure that they actually do make more decisions correctly earlier. 69% last year of PIP decisions were turned over when challenged.
So you're saying people shouldn't just accept it, they should appeal if they think they've got a case?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the case anyway. It's really important that people do get some help. And if they do get refused, not to just accept it. It's never going to be more important than it will be when the 4-point rule comes in.
I think that sounds like a good place to end. Dominic Milne, Kevin Mulhern, thank you both very much indeed. I can tell you that this is one of those stories which is not going to go away. We shall continue to try to answer your questions and listen to your comments. So you can send them to intouch@bbc.co.uk, or you can leave us voice messages on 0161 836 1338. And earlier in the programme, Dominic did mention the consultation process on welfare reform. For those who can, you can submit your questions and comments online. We'll put a link on our website. And for those who can't do that, we've asked for a phone number to be provided by the DWP. We haven't had a definite answer about that, but we've been pushing for it. Finally, just one sad piece of news. We've heard of the death of Dr. Fred Reid over the weekend. Older listeners in particular will know of Fred as one of the most effective of campaigners on behalf of blind and partially sighted people, both with the National Federation of the Blind and the RNIB. And he was a regular contributor to this programme as well. He deserves a longer appreciation for his work than we can give him today, but with his mischievous sense of humour, he would have understood the irony of its being delayed by concerns about benefits for blind people, over which he campaigned for so long. Farewell, Fred, and thank you. From me, Peter White, producer Beth Hemmings, goodbye.
Scaffolding and Skips news the week commencing the 4th of April 2025.
Newport area. Fabian Barber's Shop, Pyle Street. 33 Lugley Street. 43 Key Street. Visual Impact, 21 Holyrood Street. Guildhall, Quayside, Key Street.
And in the Ryde area, Castle Street, Watson, Bull and Porter on 9 High Street and 87 High Street. Skips in the Ryde area, The Lodge, Fairy Road, Seaview, 5 Ribelow Street and 75 High Street.
Cowes area. Granville Road, Royal Yacht Squadron. And the Cowes area skips are in 39 Newport Road.
Ventnor area, Church Street. Ventnor area skips, Shaw Road Car Park and 48 Trinity Road.
Sandown area, Premier Inn, 1 to 9 Esplanade, and Sandown area skips are in Station Avenue.
In the Shanklin area, 1C Steep Hill Road and 12 East Cliff Road.